Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky, get all the football you love in one place across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
And you're welcome back to Off the Ball Saturday here on News Talk. John Duggan with you through to 5 this evening. This is Football Saturday. Remember, football on Off the Ball brought to you by Sky. Watch every live Premier League game this season on Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports. You can text us 53106. Tweet us at Off the Ball. We're streaming the conversation as well. You can listen on News Talk. Also watch us on the digital and social channels for Periscope and Twitter at Off the Ball, YouTube, Facebook and on the OTB Sports app. Joined on the line by the former Republic of Ireland defender Damien Delaney, and in studio here by the Cobh Ramblers manager Shane Keegan. Shane, you had an interesting evening last night. You maybe talked us through it.
Yeah, interesting is one way of putting it. All right, John. Look, we very nearly pulled off a fantastic result. Gut wrenching in the end. We were playing Galway, who were second in the table. We're kind of still clinging on to hopes of still trying to get first. And we gave a fantastic performance. So we did. To be fair, we arguably could have been 3-0 down the first 10 minutes, but after the first 10 we were excellent and found ourselves 1-0 ahead when we got to the 90th minute, and
not in a normal circumstance. It was an incredible goal.
Quite a goal, all right. Young Dara scored a screamer.
O'Connell, is it?
Yeah, Dara's a great fella. He's a left footer. He plays left wing back for us there, so he does. He actually scored a brilliant free kick for us only a few weeks ago as well, but I think he himself would even admit there was a little bit of an element of luck in this one. He's striking it from the halfway line. Look, it is, it's that cross come shot area, let's call it, although it's probably more of a cross than a shot, and whatever way he connects with it, it just sails and clocks in straight off the under part of the crossbar. It was get a look at it on Twitter. It's worth a look, even if it was accidental. It's a strange looking goal. But yeah, we get to the 90th minute and somehow the referee has managed to find 6 minutes of injury time, and sod's law then 95th minute they managed to get an equaliser. But it was a good night overall. Really, really good performance by our lads. We've been showing kind of signs of recent of really looking to be kind of moving in the right direction. That was the same again last night, even if it was, as I say, a little bit heartbreaking to concede.
Not much you can say then really in the dressing room to the lads.
No. I had a little bit of a pot. We had a throw. Look, Damien will know, kind of, I'm sure at his level it wouldn't have happened. We had a throw down by our corner flag in like the 94th or 95th minute, and somehow I felt it should have been easy to throw it to the centre forward and for him to sit on the ball and just run down the clock, but we somehow managed to make a mess of it and give away a goal kick very, very quickly when I thought we could have ran down the rest of the clock, and they go and lump the ball up the field from the goal kick and create a goal scoring chance and equalise. So I was a little bit angry at that, but on the grand scheme of things, look, it's the performance was really, really satisfying, so we certainly have to take the positives from that.
Damien, great to talk to you again. You keeping well?
Hi lads, yeah, keeping really well. Just listening to Shane's story there. I don't envy him. Yeah. I'm glad it's stuff like that, because it's heartbreaking, it's heart-wrenching. I suppose the only thing you can say there is that sooner or later you'll be getting a 95th minute winner, and then it's the complete opposite. So it's tough, and fair play to you. I just don't envy it, because it's soul destroying.
And Cork City doing well as well, Damien. They're looking like they're probably going to be promoted.
Yeah, doing really well. Colin Healy's doing a fantastic job there. Got a really young squad, and he really has it motivated, organised. And look, promotion looks likely. It's not over the line yet. I know Colin wouldn't thank me for saying that, because he'll be reiterating to his squad that it's not done till it's done. But they have a big week next week up in Galway, I think it is, and they have a chance to seal it really. But nothing silly, and I think they should just about get it over the line.
I was saying here on the show a couple of weeks ago, Damien, it would actually be a huge help to us for Cork City to go up, because you don't want your near neighbours shopping in the same supermarket as you. If they go up, they'll have the bigger budget and they'll be after such a high standard of player that it might help in terms of our own ability maybe to get a couple of their younger boys in. That's how it works down there, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, and I suppose in a weird way it is good for you, because there's lots of lads there might not be able to play in the league, they might be squad players, and they get a chance to go to Cobh, and it's handy for them too. So yeah, absolutely, I agree with you there.
So obviously, folks, no games in England or Scotland this weekend as a mark of respect following the death of Queen Elizabeth II, but plenty of talking points for us to go through. And also last night in the Premier Division, so we had Bohemians losing, maybe unexpectedly, and we had Derry City winning. So Rovers not a game in hands. Is there a title race yet, or is it going to be Rovers?
Nah, I think Rovers should still manage to take care of things reasonably comfortably. definitely not a, for Dundalk or Derry, really for Dundalk or Derry to try and reel Rovers in now. They've pretty much got to go and win every single game that they've got near enough from now to the end of the season, when you add in the points that Rovers are likely to pick up. So I mean, Dundalk losing to UCD last night, that's almost a final nail in their coffin. Very good result for Derry, all right. I don't know if you've seen, you should get a look at Michael Duffy's goal online. Absolute cracker, and it just showed if they could have had him all season, John, he's pretty much missed the entire season almost, and a fully fit Michael Duffy is near enough probably only, there's probably only Jack Byrne, Andy Lyons maybe better than him in the league when he is fully fit. I mean, when we had him at Dundalk, when he was flying, he was really knocking on the door of the full squad, and Stephen I think Stephen did call him in at one stage and he had to pull out then with injury, but it was an unbelievable goal, and a fully fit him, if they can have him really firing on all cylinders next year, that should give them a right good chance. But no, it's stick Michael Duffy's name into Twitter there and get a look at his goal from last night. It's a cracker.
Yeah, Derry City 1, Bohemians 0, Drogheda 0, St Pat's 2, Shelburne 0, Sligo Rovers 2 and UCD 3, Dundalk 2 in the Premier Division last night. In the First Division, Athlone Town 2, Wexford 0, Cobh Ramblers 1, Galway United 1, as you said, Treaty United 2, Bray Wanderers 1 and Waterford 1, Cork City 2. Do you have a read, Damien, on the Premier Division this season, what you've seen?
I've watched the games that have been on the TV on Friday nights there, and I keep track of the scores on Friday evening, but Rovers have obviously been the dominant team, but I'm glad that Derry have made a game of it, because now, if Rovers do get a touch distracted, playing on a Thursday night, when they have a lot of their games, maybe Sunday or Monday, I think it might be. So, there'll be a certain amount of pressure on them, because with Derry in the position that they're in, they have to win those games now. If Derry don't win those games, then there's an element of it's fine, we can just keep tipping away and Derry will always be at arm's length. But if they lose one and Derry win one, and all of a sudden it can get very, very awkward for them trying to split their attention two ways. So look, it promised to be a fabulous run-in, and I'm glad that Derry have made a league of it.
It shows why Rory Higgins was so well rated by Stephen Kenny, doesn't it?
Yeah, he's a cracking fella. So he is a really, really good fella. I was lucky enough when I landed into Dundalk. Rory was there, and he was probably the one that took me under his wing the most, to be honest, and helped me settle in. He's just a really, really great fella. And I think I was saying to you before, we were doing a little bit of my first week at Dundalk, would you believe, was a week out in Portugal for pre-season. So I was literally meeting everybody for the first time out there, and Higgs was doing a bit of running at the time, so the two of us head off for a bit of a run in the weather and just talk soccer going around. You could just talk football with him all day long. He's a brilliant fella. I have no doubt I think they could have made a right battle of it this year, as I say, if Michael Duffy had been fit all year. But I think next year with a couple of more,
and the money
will help. The money will help, that's for sure. There's no shortage of it there, as we're aware. Their owner Philip Doherty made an absolute killing from selling his business, so there's no shortage there. And you're going to need it to try and keep tabs with Rovers, because between the investment at Rovers and the money they have, and
also the
sales,
money out of players,
exactly, the sales are colossal. I mean, the Andy Lyons one, again, it looks like they're going to make a nice few quid out of it. So it does. I was just wondering, from the games you've seen this season, Damien, that you've been covering, has there been any particular players over the course of the season that have caught your eye?
Andy Lyons, believe it or not. Funny enough, I think when he was at Bowes, I bumped into him once. I was up doing some work in Dublin. I was just wandering around kind of Henry Street kind of area. I think he's from in around that way maybe, and he just kind of, in fairness to me, came up and said, "Hey, how are you?" and he introduced himself, and I think he was at Bowes at the time, and I enjoyed chatting to him. I remember saying to me at the time there was a chance of him going over to Crystal Palace maybe, or something along those lines for a trial or something. And I was seriously impressed with him. You know what I mean? He's well able to handle himself, hold a conversation, the right kind of confident. And I remember thinking to myself, that kid's going to do okay if he can play, because he seemed to have a really nice way about him, and as I said, the correct amount of confidence. So I've obviously kept an eye on him since our chance encounter that day, and he's been brilliant. I'm delighted to see him go over now, and all that talk he was given to me there near Henry Street, he gets a chance to put it into action now over in England.
We were saying here the last day, there really aren't very many examples of inverted wing backs, Damien, are there? Like at any level, you go through, obviously João Cancelo is the one that sticks out, but you don't see it very, very often. He's been a revelation doing it for them there.
You know what? That's a testament to that, because it's not a traditional, like most kids learn positions when they're growing up. That, you know, they're fairly standard, centre back, number 6, whatever it may be. That's a new position, right? So there's an awful lot of thinking and concentration, and I suppose in-game understanding, and an awful lot of feel required. And as I said, that's testament to him, that he's able to listen to the manager, and the manager is able to explain his ideas adequately, and he's able to take it on board and implement it perfectly. And I tell you, that's an underrated skill over in the UK, or in any league, I suppose, really. But when he goes over there, he might be asked to play different roles. And if he can learn several different positions, and I always felt like that, you know, early on in my career, I spent a lot of time playing left back, left side of 3 centre backs. I had a season or 2 playing as a number 6. Believe it or not, I had half a season playing as an 8, you know, down the divisions when I was at Hull. And I always felt if you can learn positions, if there was a hole somewhere, a manager would always get you in the team. And that's all you ever wanted to be. I think a lot of players, maybe not pigeonhole themselves, but a lot of players learn how to play one position, and then all of a sudden, you know, somebody comes in who's doing a good job, and the manager's like, well, he's doing better than you, can't get you in somewhere. If you can understand football and you understand different positions, managers will always, if you're a good character, which he obviously is, and you bring a good ethos and an energy and a winning mentality to a team, a manager will always go, do you know what, we're better with you in the team, so I'm going to try and get you in the team. Now, I have someone else to play here, but you know what, I'm going to get you in somewhere else. So I always made it my kind of mission, really, to learn a lot of positions. And whenever I was in team meetings and listening to managers, or on the pitch doing team shape, when managers were talking to other players about other positions, I always listened. You know, you often find a lot of players who think, well, he's talking to the right winger and I'm a left back, it's not really anything to do with me, and their mind wanders, you know. Whereas I always stayed focused and dialed in, and you pick up little bits and you understand it. And then one day you get asked to play a certain position, and if you have a basic understanding of it, you can pull it off. So that's a testament to him, and that's one of the most underrated skills for me, is an ability to take information on board and apply it. I know that sounds really, Shane, you'll understand, it sounds really simplistic. You know, it sounds like something that everyone should be able to do. I tell you, it's pretty rare.
Yeah. Interesting that you just picked Andy out there, Damien, as somebody who's impressed you in the League of Ireland. So in the Premier League, who's impressed you? Well, I'm thinking the 2 that impressed me have been Haaland and Richarlison. Who have you picked out so far this season?
Oh, geez, put me in a spot there. And obviously, Haaland is the obvious one. That you know, his pace and power. He's come in and done everything that we'd expect him to do. I really like Luis at Liverpool.
Luis Diaz.
Luis Diaz, yeah, sorry, they popped out there. I really like him. You know, a team that's seriously lacking energy, looks extremely fatigued. He's the one guy that seems to be bringing an awful lot of energy, and performances that seems to be of a reasonable standard. So I'm impressed with him, that he's able to kind of separate himself from the problems or the feeling that seems to be around Liverpool at the moment, and seems to be able to deliver an energy that Liverpool are looking for.
Yeah, we'll talk about maybe Shamrock Rovers a bit later on in their European odyssey, but whether it's Klopp not getting enough support from FSG, or the staleness, or maybe not being able to play with that intensity, what can you put your finger on, Damien, as to why it's gone a bit stale at the moment at Liverpool?
Well, look, there's obviously lots of schools of thought on this, and I suppose the simplest one for me is you know, when they opened the season against Fulham, I was kind of debating with a friend of mine whether they were overcooked or undercooked. Right. You know, and I was kind of wondering, you know, did he have a mild pre-season in anticipation for the big year coming up? Did he not work them as hard? And he kind of was under the impression that they might build into the season, especially when you look at their early fixtures, that they kind of pick up speed as they went. But I think the more I'm looking at it now, I think they're overcooked. They really do look like they've been working very, very hard. And it's amazing when a player is tired, you know, mentally is the first thing that will go. Their concentration levels will drop. And there's so many of the Liverpool players now just look fatigued. You know, that team has been on the road for 3 or 4 years, 60, 70 games a season. I think it's just early on in the season. It's almost like standing at at base camp at Everest, and you're looking up it and you're like, geez, we can't climb it again. Whereas if you can kind of get them to 3/4 way up the mountain, the incentive of trophies, the incentive of the big European nights, the knockout stages, you know, the lights come on, all that can reinvigorate a player. But unfortunately, you got to shovel a certain amount of I don't know what the word I'm looking for there is, but snow. You know, put in the foundations, and to get yourself in those positions for come February. And I think that's probably what it is with a lot of those players. It's just standing at base camp thinking, oh man, do we have to go through all this again? The drudgery of picking up 3 points, the pressure of it. And I'm looking at Klopp, and you're kind of thinking of solutions. It's very, very hard, if not impossible, to roll back if your team is overcooked. I know with the postponement of fixtures here, Klopp will probably actually be thinking that's if he's willing to if that is the problem, if he's willing to recognise it. I know a lot of managers think, no, they're not. I'm going to keep working them. But he needs to figure out something. And then I suppose if you go to a more deeper, more technical level, you kind of look at, their style has changed over the last maybe 18 months, with the kind of addition of Thiago. I certainly felt that Liverpool under successful, there was an awful lot of forward balls played, an awful lot of almost blind balls by Henderson, spun around the corner into channels. The front three would lock it in, they'd win the ball back up the pitch, and they created an environment where it was very, very difficult to survive. And I think then they kind of drifted from that, and they've gone through more of a kind of a patient build-up, not quite as severe as what Man City are with their ball retention, but they just seem to be recycling the ball and just waiting and probing, and I'm not sure they have enough players. And then obviously if you lose the one player that can give you all that in terms of Thiago, now you're looking at the midfield has got James Milner, and the team isn't just primed just to pump ball forwards. I think I remember one year when I was playing and looked at Liverpool, statistically they played an enormous amount of long balls, balls that were like longer than say 25 or 30 metres. And everyone thought, well, they're not long balls, they're long passes. When you look at it a lot of the time, they were blind balls. Think Henderson getting the ball off Trent and just whipping it around the corner, over the left back's head, and Salah would chase it, and all of a sudden they'd create carnage. So I suppose that from a technical point of view, he's moved away from that heavy metal football that we've come accustomed to see with him. And I suppose if you do that and you haven't got an alternative to Alcantara, it can get very, very out of shape very, very quickly.
And defensively as well, Joe Gomez struggled the other night. Trent Alexander-Arnold's been consistently questioned for his defensive play, and Van Dijk doesn't look as imperious as he has been. Yeah,
he's definitely one that looks overcooked to me. He looks seriously tired. If you watch him playing, everything is reactionary.
Right.
Everything it's happening, and then he's reacting. And that's not what he's about. He's not a blood and guts defender. He's not like a Vidic or a Martinez that's come into to Man United. This guy is a reader, 2 steps ahead of everybody else. Goes in at half time with a clean pair of shorts on him. And I suppose if your concentration levels drop off even a couple of percent and you're a reader of the game, all of a sudden you're reacting. And I promise you, if you're reacting at that level, you're done. It's over. You're not getting back. Like ordinarily, Van Dijk deals with situations and we always think, there wasn't even a problem there because he was sliding into position or was where he was needed to be. So he's become very, very reactionary. And unfortunately, he hasn't got the aggression or the tackling ability or any tackling ability, because he's obviously a guy that doesn't tackle really or make contact. And I suppose when he's reacting, it looks terrible.
So when you say he's done, can he get it back, or are we like done?
No, not done. Jesus, absolutely no. I mean, he looks spent almost. You know what I mean? Right. I suppose. Look, as a player, I've often been caught in situations like that where you just feel down on yourself. You don't have the energy. You're just a little bit like maybe your testosterone levels have dropped a little bit, and you're not quite right. But I suppose the important thing is just to keep going. And often it's just one thing happens or one good thing happens for you. And sometimes it can be as simple as that. But you got to keep doing the right things. Keep training as well as you possibly can. Keep doing your prehabilitation, your post-training workout, getting your sleep, your food right. And often, I often find sometimes when you're kind of caught in a slump, you try to make a pass and you'd almost get it wrong, but it ends up being a great pass and you get a round of applause from the crowd and you kind of go, oh, hang on a minute. And then there's just a little bit of life comes into you and you get yourself going again. That really, I know a lot of people will be listening and they'll say to me, how can he be tired? He's just had a summer off. But it's a mental fatigue as opposed to a physical fatigue. Like I said, these guys have been on the road for a long, long time. International games in the summer, international window coming up. They're not going to get a break till probably next summer. And that's why I use the kind of the base camp at Everest analogy, because they know that they're in this till probably the end of May. That's a long time. So look, I hope they snap out of it. I hope the manager can somehow motivate the players. I hope the manager can get them going, can reinvigorate themselves. Like I said, I think this will be a blessing in disguise. Maybe not blessing, I think that's a wrong term to use with the Queen dying, but maybe for him as a manager, a kind of a good thing that he can maybe give his players a few days of a rest and come back next week and get them going.
Yeah, no, fascinating thoughts from Damien on Liverpool. Liverpool fans, 53106, you want to get involved with a question or a comment?
Yeah, I completely agree with Damien in terms of them. It's amazing that when you consider the millions of pounds that are spent in sports science departments now and the amount of personnel that are in sports science departments now, that you can have a situation where, what are we, a little over half a dozen games into a season, and we're talking about a team looking tired. Now, again, as Damien says, it's as much mental as it is physical, but there's something, they have got something wrong there. They definitely have got something wrong in terms of their lead-in. They shouldn't look neither physically nor mentally drained 6-7 games into a league season, and I think there's definitely going to be question marks asked there in the background. Now, the one thing I'd caveated with, John, is I remember reading at the time about Liverpool's pursuit of Klopp when they brought him in at first. Edwards was still there. He was still the key decision maker at Liverpool at the time. And they went to meet Klopp to explain to him why they thought he was the ideal person for the job and all of that. And what part of their sales pitch was that Edwards started talking to Klopp about people think that your Dortmund side haven't performed as well. Well, we've looked at the underlying numbers and we can see from the underlying numbers that you should have been way higher in the league than you should, and a lot of things haven't gone in your favour and all of that kind of thing. So they were looking into more than just the result. And if you do the same with Liverpool at the moment, now, I'll leave the Napoli game to one side. They were just awful against Napoli and deservedly were absolutely battered in that game. But previous to that, like, all of the numbers around the Everton game show that they should have won the game against Everton. All of the numbers around the game against Manchester United show that they should have won the game against Manchester United. Like, if you have 5 points there that have gone missing, all of a sudden things don't look half as bad as they are at the moment. So I wouldn't be jumping. I think they have had a little bit of bad luck, and then as Damien has said, you have the Thiago thing. I wouldn't be pressing alarm buttons yet, really, to be quite honest about it.
I suppose we're talking about titles here, and we're talking about Liverpool being very close to win the title last season, went to the final day, and these are the points you're just slipping away to Manchester City, and that's the issue. When people talk about title contenders, you're now more talking to them as a team that'll get in the top four.
But John, to be honest about it, I would have, at the start of the season, if you would ask me what's the best Liverpool can hope for this year, I would have said distant second to City. And what do I think is the best they can achieve now? Distant second to City. I don't see how they could possibly have mixed it with City this year. We had the best team in the world sign the best player in the world. There was only one outcome. I know it's not quite that simple, that it doesn't always just gel like that. But when you're Haaland and you're City, it does just gel just like that.
Damien?
Do you know, Shane, if, like, we're talking about sports science people and fellas behind the scene, like, you'd wonder what kind of manager Klopp is. You know, if you were a sports scientist or a strength and conditioning or whatever it may be, and you've got all the readouts of all the numbers and the heart rates and the zones players are getting into, the whole 9 yards, and you go and see Klopp, do you think he's a manager that would sit down and look at that? Or, like, would he just say, hey, get that out of my face, man, you know, these lads need to be worked? And I know people would say, like, well, why do you bother employing them and stuff like that? But I mean, you take some serious courage. Klopp's a big man. I've seen it. Like, to walk into his office with a printout of paper and say, look, the lads are working too hard. I mean, it's an awkward one, that. I mean, you're the manager. I mean, I know you're supposed to trust your staff and stuff, but it's an awkward one for a fitness coach, you know.
Yeah, it's actually good timing on it, Damien. And I know this definitely wouldn't be everybody's cup of tea, but I've literally just finished a book by a journalist, Rory Smith, a book called Expected Goals, which is basically about
that XG thing.
There you are. It's about the whole rise of stats over the last 2 decades or so it is. And again, that's why it's fresh in my mind about Edwards and him approaching Klopp. And they say in the book, Edwards says in the book, that one of the reasons that Klopp from the outside looks like this all-knowing, all-confident manager, but that really they found he was completely and utterly open to looking at the numbers, looking at the data, taking other people's opinions on board, even though from the outside looking at him, I don't know. I would imagine he's, you know...
Is that not just when the data is good, Shane?
That's it.
Everyone loves the good data, but bad data seems to slip through.
Correct, 100%. Yeah, so yeah, look, if you're the guy with the laptop, as Damien says, if you're the guy with the laptop and the laptop says one thing and Jurgen says another thing, there's only going to be one winner between Jurgen and the laptop, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, I'm the Luddite in this conversation, so but Pep Blinders has an important role to play then, surely, as a buffer.
He's getting nothing but abuse. Apparently it's all his fault for writing the book, is it?
Yeah. So solutions, Damien, are there any easy solutions? Because obviously the transfer window is closed now.
I suppose this is where Klopp's got to earn his corn, really, and motivate the players. Engage with them, get them believing again. It might not be the stick, it might not be the carrot, but he's got to get into their souls again and remotivate them. And whatever his technique is for motivating players, he's got to make them believe, that it's worth it. Put the hard yards in now, and those February nights, the League Cup final is around that time, the knockout stage of the Champions League, all the good bit that we're all looking forward to. We just have to get through this period. And that's why these managers get paid such huge money, because that's what they're good at. They need to be able to motivate their players or remotivate them if they're lacking. So that's where he gets his money, as far as I'm concerned.
If they are looking for upsides, Damien, Harvey Elliott has been very good. He looks like he's going to be a serious footballer, doesn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. But he's developing, you know what I mean? I mean, bringing Harvey Elliott into the Liverpool team maybe last year would have been great, but asking him to kind of pick up the club and go, do you know what, everyone's lacking here, Milner's struggling, hey, everyone's struggling, can you carry us? No, he might well do, but it's a big ask for a kid. The kid's just be kind of tidying up around the edges, learning, developing in a team that's doing really well. It's very difficult for young kids to kind of carry the weight of a football club, especially the size of Liverpool. But he's done great, and he just needs to keep doing his thing, and hopefully the team kicks into gear.
Yeah, Carvalho the same. Look, I suppose we haven't seen Nunez yet, have we? Really.
Well, we got one glimpse of him.
We haven't seen, say, 6 months of him, or if he's going to work out or not. We don't know yet, really.
Yeah, look, even just the extra option of a quality player there when they're all available will be a big help to them as well. But he certainly looks a handful. Now, look, the fact that his first proper physical test and the first time anybody's given him a bit of niggle, he's gone and reacted, you can be 100% sure he is going to get that every week from now on, and every centre half is going to fancy their chances of winding him up. So that wasn't the cleverest move to react so quickly there, but he does look like he has something about him, that's for sure.
Did you wind up any defenders? Sorry, Damien.
No, but that could be something like Nunez come back and think could be the catalyst. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of players that kind of feeling sorry for themselves, or things aren't quite working. Like you look at someone like Erling Haaland. If you're feeling tired as a Man City player, and all of a sudden he walks through the door and starts doing what he's doing, that's going to breathe the team, because we're going places. But it just seems to be a bit of kind of self-pity around Liverpool at the moment. But if he can come back in and get into the type of form that Haaland is in, maybe not that type of form, but reasonable form, a lot of the players might just think, oh, hang on a minute, and that's why you need to refresh your squad, so that staleness comes out. So, look, Nunez is there. I think Luis Diaz is doing really well. Maybe Thiago come back in the team. They can get themselves going again.
Were you somebody to wind up defenders? Forwards, Damien?
No, not really. It wasn't really my thing, because I always think concentration is an important part, and also I always used to, when they used to get under my skin, I used to hate it when I lost concentration. I got involved in things that I shouldn't be getting involved in, because then that's when mistakes happen, and that's when you kind of get caught in position, and or maybe you don't help someone else because you're sorting out your own problem, your issue, you're centre forward, and you probably should be covering someone else. But no, not particularly. But listen, if it happened in the flow of the game, then obviously you don't shy away from it, and a lot of centre forwards would.
You didn't go looking for it, I suppose, is what you're saying.
No, I didn't go looking for it. But if they were looking for it, you wouldn't turn it down. But I'd always remember just staying focused, staying concentrated, and remember about that. And then if you got a chance to leave one on someone, you got a free hit, then you would do, obviously.
Okay, Damien Delaney and Shane Keegan on Football Saturday. 53106. Van Dijk looks bad because he's got no confidence in Gomez, says one of our texters. And I think the Liverpool players are nearly minding themselves for the World Cup in December, says another of our texters. Well, a lot of those Liverpool players are not going to the World Cup. I'm thinking of Mo Salah, Andy Robertson off the top of my head. Just in terms of the golf at Wentworth, the BMW PGA Championship, Søren Kjeldsen and Victor Hovland out in front on 12 under par, both in the clubhouse in this 54-hole event now. They're a shot ahead of Thomas Tuchel of Belgium. Rory McIlroy is making a move. He's now gone to 8 under par through 11 holes, 4 under for his round today, in a tie for 10th. Shane Lowry in a tie for 19th on 7 under par through 10 holes. We're back with Football Saturday after this. 53106 for any text you may have or any comments or questions.
Football.
Back to Off the Ball Saturday here on News Talk. John Duggan with you through to 5 this evening. This is Football Saturday. Remember, football and Off the Ball brought to you by Sky. Watch Premier League, Women's Super League, EFL, Scottish Premiership and much more live on Sky Sports. You can text us 53106. Tweet us at Off the Ball. Listen on your radio on News Talk across Ireland. Watch us as well on the digital and social channels for Periscope and Twitter, at Off The Ball, YouTube, Facebook and on the OTB Sports app. Delighted to be joined on the line by the former Republic of Ireland and Crystal Palace defender Damien Delaney and the Cobh Ramblers boss Shane Keegan, who's in studio between now and 5. No football as we know in the UK following the death of Queen Elizabeth II, but plenty of talking points. 53106, Andy Robertson had a great relationship with Mane, where Diaz seems to be more individual. Elliott takes too much out of the ball instead of feeding Salah quicker, says Mike in Kerry. I saw Dimitri Payet's free kick against Palace again recently. Can you ask Damien Delaney if it's true that somebody in the Palace wall shouted cheerio with the ball as it sailed over the wall before dipping in, says Paul in Cork.
Yeah, that might have been me. That was the most freakish thing I've ever seen on a foot. It felt like it hit like a glass ceiling and came back down again. Like I used to always be in the wall, right? And you always know when a ball gets hit right and it's going over the wall, you always know when it's got a chance, because it just, you can just tell by the feel of the flight of the ball or whatever way he hits it. Like you can always tell, like, oh, we're in trouble here, this is going to be good. But he hit that right, and I actually took a step forward thinking that's going to the top row to stand. And I think I said something like, that's good, and I said, turned round and it was like something hit it midway and it just dipped straight down. It almost came down at like a 30-degree angle where it went up and came back down again. It was incredible. I don't know how he did it or what, but I don't know what happened with it, but it was one of the most bizarre things that I've seen. I've never seen a ball react like that ever.
Roberto Carlos, it's the only other one I can remember that looked like it was going completely in one direction, but that was some strike that day. I really I remember watching it at the time and thinking with the Payet one, how has he even done that? Like, there's been one or two Ronaldo ones, in fairness, back through the years as well, where he remember when he first invented that
against, I think it was
knuckleball. When he first invented that whole knuckleball strike. Dude, it's a beaut when they pulled him off.
I was raging because we were 1-0 up and I scored, and I was, that's the end of me then.
Your glory was gone.
I was hanging on. I got about 5 minutes of enjoying myself at Upton Park.
Yeah, he kind of disappeared at the English game, didn't he, Dimitri Payet? Went back to France and he went to play for Marseille. And you got an image? Did you sent an image into our producer Shane of was it Damien? Do we get the image up on the screen?
Diego
Costa.
We got. I was looking at the talking points for the show, and that we were going to talk about Diego Costa. And the next thing I noticed, Mr. Delaney having a little encounter with Diego Costa. I was just wondering what was happening on this occasion, Damien. I
don't know if you can see the image, Damien, but it's.
I think I know. I think I know the one you're pointing to, but. That's a prime example of what we were talking about just before the break. We're not getting involved with people. He had an amazing ability to wind you up, even though he didn't speak English. I liked him actually. I enjoyed it. He was a tough guy and he was aggressive and he was angry. But again, you when you're going in to play a game against him, like I got sent off one game because I got involved with him. I got 2 yellow cards for 2 fouls on him because he just was irritating me. And I think one was like a mistimed challenge, and then the next one he just skipped by me. And one of them ones where you just instinctively hold their jersey and then let it go because you realise, but I was already a yellow card and that was me gone. And I remember after the game I was just seething with myself for buying into his whatever another word there as I'm looking for. His nonsense. Nonsense. Yeah, buying into his nonsense. Yeah. So after that, I just thought, just don't get involved with him because he thrives on that type of stuff. And some days, you get the better of it. Some days he gets the better of it. But
if you were heading into a match day, Damien, knowing that you're about to mark him, like would you it would strike me that you would relish that kind. I would have thought you'd prefer a Costa than a Jermaine Defoe or a Michael Owen or somebody like that. I would have thought you would have loved the challenge of that battle against the likes of a Costa.
I did. I loved the playing against them, but it's the off the ball stuff and when, the ball's on the other end of the pitch and stuff and when he jumps up for a header and he knows he's not going to win it, but he jumps into you, that type of stuff where you're kind of going, it can irritate you and kind of grind your gears a little bit. But the physical side of it was great, but he was fair, and every time you left one on him, he took it as well, and he'd kind of give you a little nod, and so he was fine like that. But you're right, the bigger lads, I much prefer that. It's the Hazards and the David Silvas that would, and the Fabregases of this world. They're the ones that used to really, keep you up at night because they're the guys that would look one way and pass it the other. and you're trying to read their eyes and try and get a jump on where they're trying to pass it. And there's nothing more embarrassing when you read a pass one way and he reverses it down inside you. So you always kind of had to hold your position a bit longer until he actually passed the ball, which then made your life a little bit more difficult because the guy you're going to close down already has it under control and is moving towards you. You're trying to kind of read where they're going. But Silva was the worst one for looking one way and passing the other. But after a while, you realise to hold your ground. But then, he gets it to a tricky wide man or gets it into a number 10, and the number 10 gets turned and he's already running at you, and you're late, but you have to hold. The costs of this world were enjoyable to a point. Yeah.
Yeah, and Haaland, would you enjoy?
Oh, that's a good one. Not particularly. No, I'm glad I'm sitting at home here watching the golf here on the TV. I suppose when you're going in to play against players like, if you're playing against a Lukaku or a Fabregas, you're always trying to think like, what are they good at? Okay, that's what they're good at. Don't give them that. Like Lukaku, don't get involved in physical battles with him. Don't get tied to him. Don't try and, get involved in a macho battle that I'm stronger. Admit from the start he's stronger than you, so don't get into battles with him. Arm's length away, and what's he not good at? His touch is poor. Okay, so go to that. And tricky fast centre forwards, give yourself a couple of yards. Don't worry about it. If you get to defeat, you can readjust, or you might get help from number 6. Don't get caught in a foot race with him. Don't get greedy, things like that. So you're always trying to work out these things before a game. Well, that's what I used to do anyway. But him, I'm not entirely sure you're going into a game. Strength in numbers, I suppose, would be one of the things I'd be thinking. But then again, if you start converging on him and you start asking your 6 to play a little bit deeper or your fullback to play a little bit closer to you, then other players are going to strip you. Like the wide players in the number 10s, they all start getting joy. But you're not going to beat him in a battle of strength. So you probably think, I don't want to get involved in that. You don't want to get caught in a foot race with him. I suppose the worst one is when crosses are coming in the box, because if you get caught underneath the ball, like as a centre-back, you always got to, I used to always be told that, if they beat you the one on the back here. Don't let them get across the front of you. Don't let them nip in front of you. If it goes big, it might beat him as well. But, sometimes you can be the perfect cross. But with him, if it just got clipped in the box and you're kind of standing there and he's got a run on you, even a 2-step run, you're a sitting duck, you're going to get absolutely annihilated. And even in situations like that, if you think to yourself, I am a sitting duck, what you'd always do is you try and jump on an angle into the centre forward so he can't quite get it at it either. But I think if you did that with him, he'd absolutely run right over the top of you. You'd bounce off him. So I don't know, to be honest here. Strength in numbers would be my kind of self-preservation rule really there.
Yeah, look, it's exactly the questions that Damien is asking himself as a centre half when you're marking a centre forward. As a manager, they're the same questions you ask. You look at the skill set of the forward, and if he's a speed merchant, well then maybe as a team we'll drop off and we'll play a bit deeper so there's less space in behind. If he's brilliant on crosses, well let's try and play a little bit higher, or let's stop the cross and things like that. Like I just, as Damien is saying, I don't see, there's no one. He's a 10 out of 10.
He's got everything. He's got everything.
Yeah. And the problem is, I think they'll have a chance. I think the opposition teams will have a chance in the World Cup, because I think when are they in the World Cup?
No, they're not.
They're not in the World Cup. Sorry. But when you're playing against Norway, I think you have a chance, because the only way to stop them is to stop the supply.
Yeah, but then you got De Bruyne, so.
And against City, it's impossible to stop the supply, because you've got De Bruyne on first and foremost, and then so many more who can step up. So you can't stop the supply. You can't stop him once he has it. Like it's mission impossible. But he's not the only one at the moment. Like there's a serious collection of centre forwards.
We've got Alvarez in there now as well, But I've been absolutely fascinated watching him. I've really enjoyed watching him, because you just know he's going to do something.
Yeah,
and he might not touch the ball.
The numbers at the moment. I think he's scoring a goal per every 12 touches of the ball or something.
Goals in 7 competitive matches.
It's
he's going to break all the records if he stays fit. I suppose there's one thing that the opposition teams would be hoping for, that he doesn't stay fit for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and look, they are going to need to be careful, because Pep has kind of made a liar for himself there already. I mean, Guardiola did say in the early weeks that the thing with Haaland is, because of that injury record, you'll see that once we get to where midweek games come along, he won't play midweek if he's playing at the weekend, or he won't play at the weekend if he's playing midweek. He started every game so far, hasn't he? So he's kind of made a liar of himself so far on that one. But he's obviously feeling just so good at the moment and playing that well that you just can't leave him out, can you?
I'm sure Pep will have a different view if you talk to him. 53106, I've sent this text before, but Damien Delaney really is the best pundit on our TV and radio. Wonderfully original, says Tom. So fair play, Tom. What is the story at Chelsea? Were they right to sack Tuchel, Damien?
I don't think so. No, I think he'd enough credit for not much longer, but I felt he deserved a little bit. But without knowing the inner workings of what's going on in the changing room, whether players were sick and tired of it, he's quite a combative character. He's quite strong with his players. There's a great clip of him online in his working in Germany, and he's berating. I think it might be the American winger. You find it. I started a story that I've none of the details, but sorry, that's not great. But
Pulisic,
he's berating. Who was it?
Pulisic,
is it?
No, it was. I think it might have been Leon Bailey or someone like that.
Right, yeah.
Before, like in his early days, and I remember looking at that going. So he does create controversy in his changing room. So without knowing the ins and outs of what happened in the changing room, it's difficult to say. But from the outside looking in, I felt he deserved a little bit of time. But then you look at it from the owner's point of view, they're just after shelling out an enormous amount of money to buy a football club, and they've just shelled out an enormous amount of money in the transfer window, and they've not started well. And I think a lot of their budgets will be done off bare minimum finishing in the top 4 and getting to the quarterfinals of the Champions League. That's kind of financially what they're looking at. And I think they've got off to a bad start. They're not experienced owners. They'll be taking advice because they're not football people. So I don't know who their advice is, where their advice is coming from. I think they might have panicked ever so slightly, the owners, and just gone, oh my God, we can't risk not getting out of the group. We can't risk being mid-table in the Premier League. As you can understand, I suppose, a little bit with the amount of money that they've spent. But I think that, that's just Chelsea. Maybe they looked at Roman Abramovich, and Abramovich was absolutely cutthroat and he didn't wait. But I think Abramovich probably would have given him another 2 or 3 matches, I'd have thought, giving him a second run in the Champions League, second game, maybe even a third game, before they hit the panic button. I just think they've hit it slightly early. But having said that, look, it's their football club, they bought it, and I suppose they can run it how they see fit.
It seems like a dressing room can go wrong pretty rapidly, Damien.
If you follow with the wrong characters, it can, yeah. If you upset the wrong people, the players can come in, and even if they're in a bad mood or they're sulking or they're being quite negative and they're strong characters, it can infect the changing room very, very quickly. And then the manager is as combative as what he is. It'd be quite easy to upset some players. But like I said, without knowing what's gone on in the changing room, I don't think the players had thrown a towel in for him. They just weren't playing well. But I think he deserved a touch more time just to try and figure it out.
Yeah, Los Angeles Dodgers is the other club that Todd Bailey and the Americans are involved in. Their coach, Dave Roberts, has been there since 2016. So maybe there's hope for Graham Potter with the 5-year deal, that they've just decided, we're new guys, we want our own person in, and maybe that's just the way it is. But I think it's harsh on Tuchel if you're winning the Champions League within 6 months. But he has had form in having fractious relationships with people at Dortmund and at PSG.
Yeah, look, when the result was the result the other night, when the final whistle went on it, and my kind of instinct was, Jesus, they're not going to go and get rid of him on the back of that, are they? But I shouldn't even be thinking like that. But you get me? You're thinking this would be the kind of Chelsea thing to do, that he could actually be in trouble here, and then you wake up the following morning and all of a sudden the stories are that he is going straight away, and it's madness, but it's not surprising really at the same time. So it's not because of the history that's there. And as you say, any time new owners come in, I think any manager is going to be saying, oh no, because they do. You tend to want your own person. You usually do tend to, time after time, you'll see there's not too many cases where success has happened between new owners and them just sticking with the manager that they had through it. But look, it's so important, as you've touched on there, the relationship between the players, massively important. Keeping your leadership, kind of core leadership group in your corner, handling your alpha males and all that. But to me, in sports management, the biggest deal is trying to manage upwards.
Luxembourg has won the Royal Bahrain Irish Champions Stakes. Aidan O'Brien, never write him off, 7-2, and has beaten Onesto into second place, 11-1 shot of Videni. The favourite, 7-4 favourite, was third, with Mishriff fourth. So Aidan O'Brien and Ryan Moore have won the big race on Longines Irish Champions weekend at Leopardstown. Big result. Luxembourg was the horse they all wanted to win the Derby. Wasn't right, was injured at the time, and has come back now and won this 1 mile 2 furlong, this Group 1 Irish Champions Stakes at Leopardstown. A huge result for Aidan O'Brien and Ryan Moore, and the St Leger to come tomorrow. Sligo Rovers, by the way, in Galway in the Women's National League. Galway leading 5-2 entering the closing stages. So a lot of goals there. Graham Potter, your thoughts? Seems to have done everything right, hasn't he, Damien?
Yeah, ticks every box. But I suppose when any manager goes in, he's got to connect with the players very, very quickly. Get the players believing in him, because it's one thing having all the knowledge, having all the tactics and the training and the numbers, all that right. But if the players don't believe in you, they're not going to do it very well, or they're not going to do it to the best of their ability. So his job now is to go in, connect with those players, make them believe that what he's saying is right, because a lot of those players will look at him and they'll say, okay, he did well at Brighton, and he might only get a couple of training sessions before some of them go, I'm not really sure where I fit in this, right? I'm not really sure about
Marco
this.
Correa.
Well, look, and then it just takes one or two players to switch off, and you're sunk. So he's got to go in there now, and he's got to connect with those players and get them believing in what he has, because his blueprint is brilliant, but he's worked with a different caliber of players, a different type of player. Players kind of underdogs, punching above their weight, that type of stuff. And I suppose when you connect with those players and you're playing so well, and all the players are getting pats on the back and things are great, it's a different scenario. But look, I'm sure he's interviewed for the job. He seems like a really, really good character. He seems like, well, obviously he doesn't seem, but he has got a great track record in improving players and getting players to play a certain type of football. Chelsea have obviously looked at it and said that's a bit of us. But it's,
okay.
Sorry,
I just have to take a break, Damien. Sorry about that.
Okay,
and Shane. So we're going to have plenty more chat between 4 and 5. Damien Delaney and Shane Keegan on Manchester United, on Shamrock Rovers, on the women's national team, on Arsenal, on Tottenham, and all these things. If you want to get in touch with the commenter question, 53106. We're back with Off the Ball Saturday, Football Saturday here on News Talk after the news. Don't go away. Off the Ball Saturday here on News Talk. John Duggan with it through to 5 this evening. Just going to go through the golf scores at Wentworth and in the US. So Søren Kjeldsen, 64 today to go to 12 under par on day 2, which it is now, of the BMW PGA Championship at Wentworth. So he's joined by Victor Hovland of Norway on 12 under as well, as 68 for Hovland today. So they're tied for the lead at the moment, a shot ahead of Matthew Jordan of England and Thomas Detree of Belgium. They're both in 11 under par in the clubhouse. Francesco Molinari is in 5th on 10 under par. Then on 9 under, Fabrizio Zanotti, James Morrison, Marcus Armitage, Masahiro Kawamura is also on 9 under par in the clubhouse. And Rory McIlroy's gone to 9 under par now, 5 under for his round through 12 holes of it, with Billy Horschel on 9 under par through 12 as well, the defending champion. So they're making moves, could get a bit further up the leaderboard by the end of the day, given there are 2 par 5 holes at Wentworth. Shane Lowry is now 8 under par. He's in a tie for 12th through 12 holes, playing the 13th, 2 under for his round today. Kind of a steady round for Shane Lowry. In terms of the action in the US, we have women's golf here in association with KPMG, proudly supporting women in sport. The Queen City Championship is the event on the LPGA Tour this weekend in Cincinnati. So Leona Maguire in a tie for 12th and 7 under par at the halfway point ahead of her third round in a few moments' time. The Cavan woman shooting an opening round of 70 before 67 yesterday. That leaves her 6 off the pace of South Korea's leader, Jung Lee 6, and Stephanie Meadow now 2 under for a round today through 7 holes. She is on 4 under par overall. That is the golf update. This is Football Saturday here on Off the Ball. Sligo Rovers 2, Galway 5, a result now from the Women's National League. Remember, our coverage on Off the Ball brought to you by Sky. Watch every live Premier League game this season on Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports. You can text us 53106. You can tweet us at Off the Ball. You can listen on your radio across Ireland on News Talk. Also watch us on the digital and social channels. For Periscope and Twitter, at Off the Ball, YouTube, Facebook and on the OTB Sports app. Delighted to be joined on the line by the former Republic of Ireland defender Damien Delaney, and here in studio with the Cobh Ramblers manager Shane Keegan. Last night was overseeing a 1-1 draw in the League of Ireland First Division, and tonight is going to Garth Brooks.
Tonight's the big one. Whatever about last night, John. Yeah, bring it on. Looking forward to it now. Big time. I'll be darting from here straight over to Croker. Get myself a cowboy hat somewhere on the way. Have the check shirt on already, as you can see. Looking forward to it. Cannot wait.
I can't tell if that's genuine or not, Shane.
I am not going to be shamed into feeling it's wrong to love Garth Brooks, lads. He is top class and I can't wait. Bring it on.
I think you're just being dragged along there and you've got to fake that for the missus or something.
Nah. Some people try and cover up their appreciation.
Guilty pleasure.
Yeah, exactly. By like Damien has said, by claiming somebody else has dragged him along. Not at all. If anything, I'm dragging a few with me.
I'm sure there are a lot of people listening in on their way to Garth Brooks. So I just it just goes way over my head. I've no idea. I just don't understand it. And that's look. It's each their own. I have a hope everybody has got a great time this evening and yesterday and tomorrow. And look. Damien, are you a Garth Brooks man?
No, absolutely not. I couldn't tell you anything. Absolutely. I didn't know any of the songs. He's got a hold over Ireland, I suppose, really. So, because, every now and again he pops up and people seem to love him. What's the demographic of people that are going to see him? Like, is this, because I know that country music is big, in the west of Ireland and stuff, but I don't know why he's got such a big following here.
From what I've heard, I'm one of the few people going who's not from Monaghan anyway, Damien.
Well, Shane Hannon, who's our producer, I think everybody but Shane is going to Garth Brooks this evening. Maybe Shane actually is going. No, he's going. He's not. He's giving me the finger. He's not going. He's not going to Garth Brooks. So,
it's County Down.
I as I said, I don't understand it. People might want to text in 53106 and explain the whole Garth Brooks phenomenon. I just don't get it. But I appreciate that people have their beautiful interests. I've got weird interests. We all have eclectic interests. So
I would have grown up. He would have been. My father would be big into music and all that. So I would have grown up with him playing the whole time around the house at home and all of that kind of stuff. But I was just that little bit too young, probably the last time around that he was around. So. Yeah.
But also the whole thing about that he couldn't play here and now he can come back and there's the whole, people are waiting a long time.
We had tickets last time. Well, we were all geared up to go the last time round and then it fell by the wayside. So genuine excitement, John.
Well, enjoy it. Have a great time.
How old is Garth Brooks? Because if you're saying you're too young to go to one of his concerts, Shane, like.
What age do you think I am? No, I'm afraid. Don't answer that. Actually, don't answer that. I'm afraid to
Garth
ask.
Brooks is 60.
Oh, okay.
Now, he's a young looking 60, but I think
it was, or was it 94, 96 thereabouts last time he was over, I think. So it was kind of only young enough teenager, believe it or not, despite the bald head and all that.
One of Ireland's great mysteries. But what's your musical choice then? Is it heavy metal or rave, Damien? Or?
Yeah, kind of rock music, really, or blues, rock and blues, really, I suppose. Yeah, anything like that, really. I like classic rock as well, old music, a bit of AC/DC and stuff like that. Then I kind of also have a thing for like the Clash and things like that, or the Ramones and stuff. So if I'm ever going to the gym or anything like that, definitely some Ramones will be on there for me. So that's kind of what I would listen to mostly, really.
Would you be a gig man?
Yeah, I went to Van Morrison a couple of weeks ago here in Cork. Yeah, it was my second or third time seeing him. When I was in London, I used to go an awful lot as well. I used to live not far from the Royal Albert Hall, so there's always really good gigs there. I think Eric Clapton several times. Gary Clark Jr. He's probably my favourite guy at the moment, really.
Good stuff. I think like a blend.
You're going, who's Gary Clark Jr.? I can see by the pair of you.
I know the Ramones. So I would listen to the Ramones a bit and the Clash myself, but Gary Clark Jr. is a bit of a stretch for me now. I have no idea who he is, but
very niche, Damien. Fair play to you.
There's my plug for Gary Clark Jr. If anyone likes blues, he's pretty good.
There you go, Gary Clark Jr. So we have Man United. Have you seen progress that can be sustainable from them, Damien, so far?
Yes, I suppose. I don't think Man United are anywhere near being back, and it's going to be a long time. It's going to be several transfer windows. But I believe that they have the guy to do it. If the club are ever going to get back, this is the guy to do it. I think he has a good handle on the club. His decision making since he's come in has been brilliant. He gave everybody a chance in the Brighton and the Brentford game, and I think he realised the scale of the problem. He seems to have a handle on it. The problem is that he's stuck with a squad. I'd say there's at least 7 or 8 players there that he'd like to get rid of. It's going to be very, very difficult to get rid of them because a lot of them were bought for a lot of money. They're going to take a huge hit. And obviously on wages as well, there's a lot of players at Manchester United that are earning money that they wouldn't get a third of what they're getting elsewhere. So moving those types of players on is going to be costly. Now, whether he's allowed to do that, whether he's allowed to follow through or not, I don't know. That remains to be seen. But I think if Manchester United are ever going to get back competitive again, I believe they have the manager. They just need to back him now over the next 4, 5, 6 transfer windows.
Does he have a sulking issue to worry about? Is for the likes of Ronaldo more so, and maybe even Maguire? Damien?
Sorry, lads, I drop out there.
No, you're grand. Yeah. Does he have a sulking issue to worry about when it comes to the likes of Ronaldo and Maguire?
I absolutely. I think he will do with certain players, but what I like about him is he looks like he has the personality to deal with it. He won't counter them. He won't let them do what they want. I'm pretty sure Ronaldo will be complaining, but it's a case of, Chief, you're here till at least January, so either get your head around it and you contribute coming off the bench, or you won't be involved. And I think that's the type of strong management that you need with Ronaldo. I know he's the greatest player that the game's ever seen, or one of two greatest players the game's ever seen. But if he's not contributing, he's obviously going to say to him, look, you have a role to play and you are going to be part of the squad if you want to be. But it's a kind of a lesser role. But you still have a huge part to play, not just on the pitch, but off the pitch. How many players look up to you here, setting the standard, setting the tone in the changing room? But I'm pretty sure that if Ronaldo doesn't buy into that, he won't stand for it. And I think it's similar with Maguire, I think the very fact that he left Casemiro on the bench was a nice move on his part, because everyone thought Casemiro coming in would go straight into the team, but he got a response from Scott McTominay. And I think for a manager to be trusted by players, he had to leave Scott McTominay in the team. If Scott McTominay was in the type of form that he's in and he whipped him out, played Casemiro, I think a lot of players would be like, oh, here we go again. Certain players are going to play all the time, regardless of their performance, regardless of what they do, regardless of how they behave, they're going to play. And I think as a squad, it's great when a manager comes in and leaves some big names on the bench, because it runs through the squad then that, like, if I do well and I run around and I put in performances, I'm going to stay in the team. Whereas I think there was a mentality in Manchester United that, what's the point in running around? I'm not going to play anyway. And when I do come in and I do reasonably well, I'm straight back out again. And mediocrity was rewarded. And I think it's an important precedent for a manager to set that if you do well, you play in my team. I don't care if you're Maguire, the captain, Ronaldo, the greatest player of all time, or Casemiro with 5 Champions League. They're sitting on the bench because you're getting the job done for me. And I think that's a huge part of what I believe. I've never been a manager, Shane is, but I think that's a huge part of a manager's job.
And the Rashford regaining his confidence, maybe it just comes down to simple confidence with him.
Yeah, and look, I think in a strange way, just to go back on it, I think in a strange way, the Real Sociedad result might not be the worst thing in the world, because it almost reinforces the belief that, well, the guys that I am going with in the league, I'm leaving out Casemiro, I'm leaving out Harry Maguire, I'm leaving out Ronaldo, let's bring the 3 of them back in. Okay, 3 of them come back in, you've been bet. Well, very hard for the 3 of you to whinge or moan or have a complaint that you're not making the starting lineup at the moment. You got your chance and you didn't grab it. So the Scott McTominay's, and that deserved to be in it. Rashford, look, he just comes across as such a nice guy. Obviously the whole lot of what he's doing outside of football, you wanted a bit of luck to go for him. Now I'll be honest, I do think he's had a bit of luck. I think United in general have had a bit of luck. But you look at Rashford's second finish the other night, and I don't think he scores that goal only for the fact it takes a little flick off the defender and then that lifts it up over the keeper's leg. And overall, if you look at the United performances, again, almost the opposite of Liverpool. If you look at the United performances and the underlying numbers, fortunate to beat Arsenal in ways, fortunate to beat Liverpool in ways, even fortunate to beat Southampton when you look back at the amount of chances Southampton had. So I wouldn't be getting overly carried away yet. I think they have a bit to go, but I definitely agree with Damien to have the right fella. Like, he knows Manchester, the only way to rule in that dressing room is to be so confident in yourself. Know yourself as a person. If it double down on yourself when things are going away from you. And he strikes me as that kind of fella. He's not going to lie in bed at night worrying about what Cristiano Ronaldo thinks of him or anything like that.
Even getting Rashford, to play in the 9. There was that school of thought where Rashford was I'm a left winger. And then that meant Sancho had to go on the right. That was lunatics running the asylum. I mean, you can't have that. You can't have players coming in. You can't have Ronaldo coming in saying, I want to play an FA Cup game against Middlesbrough. You can't have, Harry Maguire saying, I'm playing tonight. And I think Solskjaer let that kind of creep in where the players were doing what they wanted. So telling Rashford, you play 9 and you're not playing, Chief. I mean, and it could have been as simple as that. And you're going to play 9 my way. You're not going to be involved in the game. You're not going to be link-up play. You're not going to have a great highlights reel. But you're going to be a 9, middle of the pitch, threatening behind, and I'll get you goals, right? And obviously Rashford's bought into it. But that's the type of strong management that people like that need.
He's getting some tune out of Eriksen, isn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, he's just been fantastic the last few games. Absolutely fantastic.
Only thing I worry about Ten Hag is all these. I think once again, a bit like Tuchel, he's been dragged into the whole transfer business, and he knows a lot of these players. So he knows Anthony Eriksen comes from the Dutch system. He knows Malacia. He knows. Yeah,
but I suppose it's the default, isn't it? Like, if The squad I have at the moment at Cobh is a squad I've inherited, but what am I likely to try and do next year? And if I'm adding a couple of bodies, I'm probably like to go for tried and tested.
I still think they need a stronger director of football in there to work with Ten Hag on transfers on a more strategic basis. I just don't think the recruitment of the club has been very good in the last few years. What about the defence, Damien? Malacia, Martinez, Varane and Dalot seems to be the four now.
Yeah, that's the first choice. Manchester United keep that. It'll give them a great platform to go and play with. And I would go so far as to say that like Varane is obviously pretty unreliable with injuries. There's one going to come up in the next couple of weeks. If he goes out of the team, I would absolutely put Victor Lindelof in alongside Martinez. Martinez is your left side centre back. Keep him fit. He's your linchpin, your focal point. He's the guy front foot defending. Sets a great example. You can't put Harry Maguire alongside him again, or Harry Maguire will drag Martinez down, drag him back down the pitch. He won't be as front foot. He won't be as aggressive. I would put Lindelof in next to him because that will give Manchester United a better chance of winning games of football. But that back four is brilliant. Malacia is a credible athlete. Looks like he loves a foot race. Quite happy to go shoulder to shoulder with any winger and say, okay, let's have a foot race. I'm in there. Dalot's tipping away on his side. Silently, just does his job, gets through his work. Pretty decent player. But the centre-back area, I think I said this before, but the reason you get the tune out of McTominay is he's not babysitting the centre-backs anymore. McTominay is allowed go and engage and be a midfield player. For the last 2 years, he's been told, you sit in front, you protect me, and I'll cover in behind. So that means McTominay is sitting in front of the centre-back, screening, and opposition midfield players are having a field day, which then means that Manchester United forwards, be it the wide player or Fernandes or the number 9, have to drop back in on the opposition number 6, and the whole team just sinks, and Man United start getting the runaround. McTominay is actually really, really good when he's allowed to go to work. When he's actually told, I don't need you here. Centre-back saying to him, I don't need you here. This is my job. Let me be a centre-back. You go and be a midfield player. That fellow over there, he's your job. Go and engage him. McTominay is snapping into tackles and he's setting a good tempo. He's a good athlete, McTominay. And he's a functional passer of the ball. He's not as bad as people make him out to be. He's not a world-class passer of the ball, but he can move the ball. And he's starting to pass forward more. And that's because the confidence looks like he's coming back into his game. And I think he deserves an awful lot of credit for the performance he's put in. But I believe it's down to the fact that he's allowed to go and be a midfield player now.
Irish Champions Stakes won by Luxembourg today, 7-2, trained by Aidan O'Brien, ridden by Ryan Moore, and Longines Champions Weekend at Leopardstown. So big result for the Ballydoyle stable. Also had a winner with Auguste Rodin at 11-10, the favourite in the Champions Juvenile Stakes, the Group 2 there. The Paddy Power Stakes, the Group 3, won by Duke de Sessa at 6-1, trained by Dermot Wells, Chris Hayes on board. Zerinsk for Ger Lyons. If you listen to the Roadshow, the HRI Roadshow last week, he did give this one. 9-2 winner, Colin Keane on board, and an English winner of the Sovereign Path Handicap with I'm a Gambler at 18-1. Tarmar Khan riding for Charlie and Mark Johnston. 3 races to go at Leopardstown. We have the Curragh tomorrow. We also have the Formula 1 Charles Leclerc on pole for the Italian Grand Prix with grid penalties taken into account. George Russell should move up to second alongside Leclerc in the front row, while the 2 McLarens move up to the second row. Lando Norris in third, Daniel Ricciardo in fourth. It's an 8th pole of the season for Leclerc at the home of Ferrari at Monza. Max Verstappen, the championship leader, the world champion, qualified second fastest, but has to take a 5-place grid penalty, so he will start the race in 7th tomorrow. Women's National League, Galway 5, Sligo Rovers 2. You're watching Celtic the other night, Shane. I'd love to be there just for that atmosphere before the game. It looked unbelievable against Real Madrid.
Looked absolutely incredible. It really, really did. And I wouldn't mind only I had contemplated possibly trying to get across to it. Look, it's we've had debates on the show before about where Celtic lie in I suppose the pantheon of elite European clubs and Scottish football, how much interest there is. But I'll tell you, when Celtic are back in European football, and with a team now, I saw a couple of comments leading up to the game that kind of summed it up, that in previous years when Celtic were heading into Europe, you were a little bit afraid as to whether they'd be up to the standard. And now Celtic fans are also, again, a little bit afraid that they're going to lose their best players and going to lose their manager, because it's at the moment still a reasonably well-kept secret just how good some of these players within the side are. And
who are they? Which ones are we talking about?
Look, Tate, is it? Yeah, he's brilliant. He really, really is. And O'Reilly looks a fine player. And these are fellas that they're bringing in for below 10 million.
That's Ange Postecoglou all over though, isn't it?
He just seems to be fantastic, unbelievable at unearthing talent. And they're playing such a lovely style of football as well. It's so exciting to watch.
It's without fear, I feel. I mean, I watched the first 40, 50 minutes of that. Like, Celtic were just as good now. They eventually got picked off. Maybe they tired, but...
They had to tire. They probably did have to tire. But that comes on the back of this. You know the way, like, you hear so much jargony stuff and clubs come up with, a line that supposedly sums us up. But that whole Celtic thing at the moment of we never stop. This is their big thing. We never stop. I have never seen so many set pieces taken quickly in my life. It's ridiculous. Every throw of a ball, the ball boy is recycling the ball within a second or two, and the ball is fired back in. If they get a free, put the hand on the ball quick, take it. It's ridiculous the pace that they play at. It really, really is. And I can see why it obviously last weekend it blew Rangers out of the water. It'll blow everybody in Scotland out of the water. And I think, barring the elite, which obviously Real Madrid are, I think that standard of performance from Celtic the other night in their other group games is going to give them a real chance. I think they look so good, and it's just, I'm the worst in the world. I'm a come and go Celtic fan to a certain extent. I'll hold my hand up and say that. When the big European time
You're
is
fair
there,
weather fan.
Yeah, to a certain extent I am. Compared to some who absolutely live and breathe it. Look, as we know, some Irish people live and breathe it, particularly up around Donegal and areas like that. I'm a million miles from that. But at the same time, I get such a brilliant buzz when they're at the level that they're at the moment and going toe to toe. And as I say, just, you couldn't but be really excited as I say, if I'm excited, imagine how the real hardcore Celtic fans feel at the moment. They really... They think Big Ange is absolutely an idol and a god to them at the moment, and rightly so. But as I say, you just wonder, can they, are they going to have a little bit of trouble holding on to some of these players and holding on to their manager over the next while?
You ever played Parkhead, Damien?
No, never even been there, to be honest. You watch a game, no, unfortunately. When you get opposition players like Real Madrid that were after the game tweeting how great the atmosphere was, it must have been something special, because a lot of those players would have played in some of the best venues in the world. And it looked it from the TV. It looked absolutely incredible, and the energy that they created certainly fed onto the pitch to the players, and they gave a great account to themselves. Unfortunately, you can keep up the pace for large periods of the time. It's impossible to keep that up for 90 minutes. But as soon as you drop it against Real Madrid, they have the quality. They will get you eventually. And how many times you see at Real Madrid last year where they just look like they're kind of in third gear, hanging in there. It's decent performance. It's not mind blowing. But then they're just absolutely ruthless and clinical when they get their chances. And as soon as you come off the throttle, they pick you off. I agree with Shane. If they can maintain somewhere near that level of performance, they've got a great chance of getting out of that group.
Women's team also played during the week. You just hope that they get there. This qualification is so convoluted and complicated and exhausting, even just following it. But they did really well to beat Finland and beat Slovakia. They're grinding out the results. They're going to go to Scotland now or Austria in October, and we'll see where we stand after that game and all the other matches and the permutations and that. But I just feel it's they've done everything right, and it's still a way to go.
Yeah, and the problem, I would have a good knowledge of the team themselves, but I wouldn't have a great knowledge of the women's wider women's football landscape. But we were doing a podcast for the 42 during the week, and Emma Duffy, who's on there with them, she knows the lie of the land inside out, and this was prior to the draw, and she said the one team that we don't want is Austria. She rated them as the toughest draw we could get, and lo and behold, it looks as though that's what
if they beat Scotland.
Beat Scotland, it looks as though that's what we could have. So it looks as though they are unfortunately still going to have a real test, and have, the fact that it's one leg and away from home, it's going to be a big ask. But look, they've done brilliantly to get to where they are. The big talk of women's football and women's sport is that it deserves equal criticism as much as equal praise. And I have found the performances recently hard on the eye. They're hard to watch. They're getting great results. But there's a particular style of play that's been implemented there at the moment that is about grinding them down and grinding out the result. And sometimes when you look at the quality of a Katie McCabe and Denise O'Sullivan and people like that, you think, if they were let off the reins a little bit more, could we maybe get a bit more out of them? But look, at the same time, Vera Pauw's getting the results. She's absolutely getting the results, and look, obviously she knows the players better than I do, so she knows what's going to work for them as far as she's concerned. But I just have a little bit of I think they could, be let off the loose a little bit more.
What do you think, Damien?
Yeah, I look. I watch from a distance, and I watch some games. I don't have any in-depth knowledge, so I wouldn't be able to give you a huge opinion. I wouldn't feel comfortable giving an opinion on them. But they seem to be making progress. Every time you read an article or you see an interview, they're making progress, and that's the main thing for them. And I'm delighted for them. I hope they go and do it. It'd be wonderful. But as I said, I wouldn't have been qualified enough to talk about them.
It would be incredible for the women's game in this country if they could qualify for it, John. It really, really would. Like, you just can't talk it up enough. The whole Katie Taylor effect in terms of boxing and the amount of top class young girls coming through in the boxing front at the moment. That exact effect, we're going to see that exact effect if Ireland can qualify here. It's already moving massively in the right direction at grassroots level based on what I'm seeing, and at underage League of Ireland level I would have had a bit of involvement with treaties, 17s and that when I was there, but this would just pump a huge amount of oxygen into that whole situation as well.
The worry is if you don't qualify, it kind of gets lost a bit, because you have the 9 months, it's next summer in Australia and New Zealand, you have all the campaigns, the billboards, and we're really getting to know these players.
Progress is progress. We've gone further than we have done before, and that's what I keep seeing and hearing and reading about this Irish team, is they keep pushing boundaries, and that's going to inspire the next generation, like the England women's team winning it. That's what you want, numbers in the game, because then it's going to get better by virtue of the fact that the more people that play it, the more coaching, the better the grassroots, the better we'll come through. So it might not be this group's chance, but they're going to move the needle, absolutely. They already have moved it. If they could qualify, well, I'll tell you what, you'd be moving it hugely. But keep moving the needle, and eventually they'll get there,
This is Off the Ball Saturday on News Talk Football Saturday with Damien Delaney and Shane Keegan. We're back after this. This is Off the Ball Saturday on News Talk. John Duggan with you through to 5 on Football Saturday with Damien Delaney and Shane Keegan. Full-time score, Galway 5, Sligo Rovers 2 in the Women's National League. In the golf, Rory McIlroy 3 shots off the lead. He is 9 under par at the BMW PGA Championship through 15 holes of a second round, 3 shots behind Starring Kelson and Victor Hovland, and 2 par 5s to come for McIlroy. He's in a tie for 6th at the moment, and a tie for 11th is Shane Lowry on 8 under par. He's playing the 15th. At Leopardstown, Jadumi, the 9-4 joint favourite, has won the Boomerang Mile, the Group 2 there. Christophe Soumillon riding for Simon and Ed Crisford, second English winner of the day after I'm a Gambler in the Premier Handicap. And the Irish Champion Stakes won by Luxembourg, 7-2 shot for trainer Aidan O'Brien and jockey Ryan Moore. They've done it in the big one. We have the St. Ledger coming our way tomorrow. Shamrock Rovers then during the week against Djurgården's goalless draw. Shane Keegan, will they be happy?
Will they be happy? Yeah, look, it's a decent result. I suppose the problem probably is, John, that the Rovers are 3rd seeds in the group. Djurgården are 4th seeds in the group. You're at home to the one team in the group that are below you. So from that sense, is there a better opportunity to pick up 3 points? Arguably not. A draw was probably a fair result. Look, it wasn't the kind of game that set the world on fire now, to be honest with you. So it wasn't. Both sides were kind of decent in possession, but once it got to the final third, there was a bit of a lack of creativity. Still no Jack Byrne. He came on and immediately made a difference, created arguably their best chance within seconds of coming on, to be honest with you. And I think he's a complete and utter game changer for them. He's a complete game changer. I think if he had been fit and able to play 90 minutes the other night, I think they possibly would have won that game. Surprised to see Rory Gaffney left on the bench as well. I think he's been outstanding in Europe so far. So there might be a little bit of a sense of the one that got away, but that's all going to be dependent on how the group plays out from here on. Like, the other game was a 0-0 draw as well, so they certainly haven't lost any ground. But just in terms of where do those wins come from, like, a draw is still a decent results. Like, they were, with bookmakers, they were still underdogs, even if they are 3rd seeds and the others were 4th. And from a financial perspective, very important that they didn't throw away the point that they had. I don't know if you've seen the numbers going around. They got more money for the 1 point that they got and drawing that game than they will for winning the League of Ireland this year, which is just a crazy situation, really.
Yeah, Deal or Waves are in action at the moment against Athlone. That is goalless in the Women's National League. Just let you know about our competition, folks. The Premier League is back. So we've teamed up with one of Europe's largest sports events ticketing and hospitality companies, Champions Travel, to give you the opportunity to win a €250 Champions Travel voucher each day this week. These can be used on Premier League match trips as well as a host of other sporting events. Daily winners will also be entered into our grand prize draw, where one lucky winner will win a trip from a selection of Premier League games with flights and 2 nights accommodation included. Today we've been asking you to tell us who this mystery voice is, wondering why people would ever be given hats free of charge.
But this is not on. I genuinely think this is not on. 3 caps.
Kevin Kilban, of course, of this stable, and our friend of the show. Congratulations to Conor Carroll, Stillorgan in County Dublin, who answered that correctly. He's today's winner of the €250 Champions Travel voucher. Damien, how have you felt Arsenal have done so far this season? OK, they lost at United, but they're still top of the Premier League. Have you been impressed by Arteta's movements?
I don't know. Okay. I kind of losing interest in Arsenal, to be honest with you. They're nice to watch. Like, you know,
you're talking to 2 Spurs fans here now on the radio. So, yeah.
Like, they just, you know what? They've just been on the periphery looking in for so long, and you're kind of going, "Come on, lads, come on!" And this year they start off great, and you think, "Okay, they've won the 5 games they should win." Then the first test they come up against, they falter. And then, you know, the Zurich game on Thursday night, it's pretty, it's easy on the eye, it's all nice, but like this, you could just still see that those old character traits, the old way that they are, is just, it's not leaving the club. And you know, maybe it was the personnel the manager was trying to get out. He moved on a couple of people, got his own kind of spin on the team, but they're just on the periphery looking in. They can't seem to get over that hurdle of just winning games of football that maybe they don't deserve to win. So that's why I'm kind of losing interest in Arsenal. But if I come home tonight and Arsenal play in the 5:30 game, I'll not watch it, because they're nice to watch. They're easy on the eye. They move the ball really well. They've got some neat and tidy players. They're nice, but they're never going to get back in the top 4 or get, you know, into the Champions League or get, I don't know, win a trophy, maybe an FA Cup, because they just have that soft side to them. And I hate using the word soft underbelly, because everyone uses that with Arsenal, but they just have it. And, you know, even if they get to the latter stages of this competition, which I expect them to, they're going to come against a Roma, you know, or a Lazio, or even a United there, I'd say. And you know that when the going gets tough, they'll just wilt. And then they'll just exit stage left, and that'll be that for Arsenal.
Arsenal going to Arsenal then, that's what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm trying my hardest not to say that. Like, that
okay,
and like soft underbelly were the 2 phrases I'm trying to stay away from. But like,
yeah. Well, you're speaking to 2 Spurs fans, Damien. Obviously, we're not biased on the radio, of course, but
we're used to being referred to as being too Spursy.
Well, we've been soft for all of our lives. So, is there any signs with Spurs that's going to be different under Conte?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I like Spurs. I think of, you know, with the kind of the poster boys for doing things the right way, looking nice, but never really doing anything. It's gone 180 the other way now. I think Spurs are going to do a lot of things. Might not be aesthetically pleasing. They might not be the most entertaining of games. You know, you're going to get a lot of points from situations where you shouldn't, but you're going to pick up points in the games that you should do. And Conte is going to drag Spurs kicking and screaming from the periphery right into the parade ring. Now, how long that will wash with Spurs fans, I don't know. I know that there's a lot of diehard Spurs fans almost think, no, we're Tottenham Hotspur, and, you know, we play the game a certain way, and that's our tradition. And we're not too worried about, I won't say not too worried about trophies, but, you know, the tradition comes first. And at the moment, all seems well. But, you know, there's a touch of kind of combativeness around Conte as well. So, look, it's whatever you want, really. But I just think with Arsenal, I'm just a little bit kind of going, I'm over them, to be honest with you. And with Spurs, I'm kind of going, okay, good. I can't wait to see where this goes.
Yeah, Son, I'd be a little bit worried about. It seems he's lost a little bit of confidence, or something's not right there at the moment. Maybe he just feels a bit under threat with Richarlison. I don't know.
Yeah, possibly. He's definitely, he's not firing on all cylinders, but look, players go through little mini slumps. I don't think there has to be a big underlying issue at the same time. Hopefully he will bounce back. And maybe, to be honest with you, John, he's been such a regular for us, and there's been such expectation around him for a long time, and he's continued to deliver on that for so long that a little bit of a breather is not the worst thing in the world for him, to be honest with you. And the fact that Richarlison has really kind of stepped up in the last week or two, and now you've got, obviously, Kilchewski's had a brilliant start to the season. Maybe give Son a week or two. Well, look, he's possibly going to get a week or two of a break now anyway, with no games going on. But even just leaving him back on the bench, that he comes off the bench with 25 minutes left, and the Spurs crowd go mad as he walks back onto the field, and feels the love again, and I think that would be no harm whatsoever. And I think we are in a position now that we probably can give him the breather. Up until now, if Son was out, we may as well nearly have not turned up, because he'd become even more important than Harry Kane over the last 12 months. So he had. Whereas now, because the two lads have looked so good in the last while, I think give him a week or two off there and get him back in, then firing on full cylinders again, all going well.
With Harvey Elliott in tears after scoring against Bournemouth, Damien, and Richarlison, a lovely scene when he went to his dad there in the crowd the other night, wears his heart on his sleeve, scored a couple of headers against Marseille in the Champions League. Did you see much of it as a pro? Did you see many players like get emotional about big things that happened? Or?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. What a lot of players have things going on in their private lives, and it's a big moment. So they're not necessarily crying because they love the football club. There might be something else going on in the background there, but it's not a bad thing to see. Players are obviously super focused. Hold a lot of energy and emotion inside, and then something happens and it just comes out of you. Again, without knowing the reasons why they cried or not, but I like Richarlison. He's the type of player that when he's in your team, he's great. When you're playing against him, he just irritates you. But he's the right type of player that Spurs need right now. And Antonio Conte, you're talking about being a dog and getting results over the line. He's your guy. You saw him coming on in the games that he came on. He had a real impact and helped Spurs get results that they get. Arsenal don't have that type of player. They don't have a dog that they can take off the bench and really see games out. And he's a really, really good player as well. But his mentality mirrors the managers. Really, really aggressive, combative type characters. And if you're playing against Spurs and the game's draw and you see him taking his shirt off or taking his tracksuit off and coming on, you're going to be like, oh, here we go now. The game's going to go up a notch because he's on the pitch. And then that's what he does.
I had a bit of a misconception about Richarlison, if I'm perfectly honest about it, John, up until probably the end of last year. I don't know, maybe I just hadn't watched enough of him. I thought it was, plenty of tricks and flicks, but does he like the rougher side of it? And then I remember I was tasked to do a tactics board piece on Arsenal and Everton around Christmas time last year, and you can only describe it as assault. He absolutely bullied the life out of Gabriel. He destroyed him physically.
In the football sense.
Yes. And just, it really, really enjoyed it. Really, really. And I was like, geez, this guy has, he has more to him than just tricks and flicks. And since he's come to Spurs, it's been the same as well. He's got an edge about him, and the fans are loving him, aren't they?
Hilarious. Was he pointing out to the referee that Thomas Tuchel needed to get sent off? It was the meme or whatever. And Tuchel was never the same after the handshake, was he? So Chicharito, our producer Shane was telling us that he had a Panenka attempt go horribly wrong on the MLS last weekend, and just got us onto the talking point of penalties. Who would you want to take a penalty for if your life depended on it, Shane?
Matt Le Tissier.
Oh,
without a doubt, Matt Le Tissier. Like, for me, penalty takers need two things. They need technique, and Matt Le Tissier's technique was absolutely flawless, and two, there's a mentality that suits penalty takers, and for me, that mentality of, I'm so good here that I'm going to score, and if I don't score, do you know what, so what, I'm that good that everybody will forgive me anyway, if that makes sense. Le Tissier had the two of those things. Like, he was just, to me, he was the perfect prototype of both technique and personality that you want from a guy taking your penalties.
How much of it goes in now with Cobh Ramblers, guys? Do you talk about penalties? Do you talk about taking penalties? Or do you have a designated guy?
No, we probably our most natural penalty taker maybe hasn't actually started all of the games for us, to be honest with you. So look, it's not something we would have worked on. I think coming up to big cup games, you probably zone in around it a little bit more, all right, but again, it's one you hear a good bit debate about, can you practice them? You can practice the technique, but there's no way in the world that you can recreate. I mean, there's been so many different attempts of, line the players up both sides of the 18-yard box, or play crowd music, or, so many different attempts to try and recreate the mental side of just how big it is. But I don't think anything can prepare you. Thankfully, I've never been in the position, but I don't think anything can prepare you for your legs starting to get a little bit wobbly as you walk the walk from the halfway line up to take one in a penalty shootout or something like that. It's just different world really from anything you can try and create.
Was there much practice, or did you encounter penalties much in your career, Damien?
Yeah, like I remember when we played in the playoff final in 2013. Kevin Phillips got a penalty in like I don't know, like the 116th or 17th minute or something, right in the second half of the extra time. And leading up to Ian Holloway was our manager. I remember leading up to the game, we were trying to do all the usual stuff of speakers and crowd noises and the walk from the halfway line, and we did an awful lot of it. And Kevin Phillips never took part in any of it. He stood by the post and laughed at people, like, you know, and was just kind of giggling and stuff, like. And I was like trying my hardest. So this goes to penalties I'm taking for it. And Kev was like, "You're wasting your time, lads. You'll never recreate it. Do as much of it as you want." And lo and behold, the game, Kev comes on and puts one right in the top corner. And I laughed at him afterwards. I went, "Fair play, man." And he goes, "You just can't recreate it, you know. You just got to have a mindset." And obviously he scored so many goals, like, you know, picking your spot, committing to it, not changing your mind, making sure you get good contact. And I think they're the things that he did. But he's like, trying to practice it is a waste of time or recreate it. But if I ever got a penalty, I'd pick him every day of the week.
we actually had an example of it last night again in the League of Ireland with Cork City, Damien. Cork City got a penalty in the 95th minute, and again, you know, that confidence, or just a fella that you'd back based on confidence alone. Rory Keating, who took the penalty for Cork, for me, he's that sort of fella. He's absolutely that sort of fella. Is he going to be overawed or overpressured by something like this? Absolutely not. And he buries it with the last kick of the game, and Cork are essentially up on the back of it. You know, that level of confidence is brilliant on penalties, you know.
Yeah, like Cantona and Cristiano Ronaldo missed a couple in their careers, but I thought they were brilliant penalty takers. Cristiano Ronaldo or Cantona. I really trust Harry Kane as well. I think Harry Kane's an excellent penalty taker.
Yeah, and again,
I'm sure he's missed one or two. He missed one there recently, didn't he? He missed one. Was it last week? He missed one, or
he did actually. That's right. Yeah.
I still would trust him. I would still trust him most of the time.
Yeah. But no, again, Cantona again. There's another one. Yeah. Prime example of just ultra confidence and, you know, balls in the back of the net before he kicks it, as far as he's concerned.
Brendan Rodgers at Leicester, Damien. It just seems to have all gone a very kind of like Ranieri style south, hasn't it, at Leicester?
Yeah, but look, you know, they took all his best players and sold them and didn't really give him anything. That's the out that he'll use if and kind of when he does get the sack. But again, the air just seems to have gone out of that football club, and that's what happens when you take all the best players and move them on. You know, a lot of players think, "Jesus, no one coming in. We're just lagging here." But having said that, you look at the starting 11 that Brendan Rodgers put out the other night in the game that they lost. That team shouldn't be bottom of the league. It shouldn't. But as I said to you, the air just seems to have gone out of that football club. And I think it's going to be very, very difficult for them. A lot of players seem down in their luck. The energy levels are down. Jamie Vardy was such a huge part of what they did. He's now on the wane, I suppose. You know, he's not as quick and as powerful and as direct as what he used to be. Can't give you 38 games a season anymore. So you're trying to replace those goals. I think it's going to be a tough season for Leicester. Very, 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 very tough season. I think there's a good chance that they're going to go down unless something drastic happens, like a change of manager, which I think will happen very, very soon.
Yeah, and who else will struggle, do you think? Maybe Bournemouth, Nottingham Forest?
Yeah, I think Bournemouth are going to struggle. Can anyone, actually, Nottingham Forest, how have they signed 20? You're only like 25 in the squad.
I don't know. They've signed more players in the Dutch league, apparently.
Like, it's outrageous. Like, Aurier went there the other day, and I think it was a 24th player. You have to register a 25-man squad. That means, what, one player that was there last year is going to be in the squad? Like, I can't understand that. It's insane.
Yeah, I actually don't know. I'm sure they wouldn't have been allowed to. Whatever rule or whatever way they've got it done, they've been able to get it done because the Premier League are quite strict on the whole rules. But
some job for the manager there.
He's a very good manager, but
he is. He's done a terrific job over the last few years. But how the hell, you know, like, I've been in situations where you've got 4 or 5 new bodies, and you're thinking, you know, I've got to do serious work on the training ground over the next couple of weeks to try and integrate the 4 or 5 bodies. Imagine, mother of God, imagine literally starting from scratch with pretty much an entire team at Premier League level, where you've got the games are coming thick and fast, very little time to work in the training ground, and you're trying to knit together pretty much an entire team from scratch.
And find the combinations of who works well together, who doesn't. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and big work for Andy Reid now. He's kind of got a high enough position there with Steve Cooper at Nottingham Forest. So the best luck to Andy. But yeah, who else? Newcastle, Leeds. Anybody kind of impressed you there in the middle of the pack, the Premier League? Just before we go, Damien.
Yeah, nothing really jumped out. I think Newcastle, everyone's really monitoring that situation to see how that plays out. I like what they've done. They haven't, kind of thrown a huge amount of money at it. I know they signed Isak for a large chunk of money. That was more because they had a couple of injuries and they needed to get someone in. But they've got a really astute director of football there, and I think that's going to be a slow burner. Newcastle steadily getting built up over the next number of years. And Leeds are pretty good too, man. And that manager, Jesse Marsh, was ridiculed by some because he was American and stuff, but he seems to be getting it done, I suppose. Nothing spectacular, but he's tipping away nicely.
The one has been Brighton, really, hasn't it? And it's just going to be very interesting to see how they deal now with losing Potter, because they've had a brilliant start to the season, and they've been so important good to watch. Important appointment,
and also for Evan Ferguson. It's be interesting to see what happens there. By the way, it's half time. DLR Waves 1, Athlone 0 in the Women's National League, and the latest result, as I said, Jadumi has won the latest race there at Leopardstown. But the big news is that Luxembourg won the Champion Stakes today at odds of 7-2 for Aidan O'Brien and Ryan Moore. Shane Lowry shaking his head there at the golf. Just not going his way this afternoon. Just can't seem to hold a putt at the moment, Shane Lowry. 2 under par through 15 holes, 8 under par for the tournament and a tie for 12th. Rory McIlroy 9 under par and a tie for 6th. The 6th actually on his own at tie for 6th at the BMW. 3 shots behind the leaders, Søren Kjeldsen and Victor Hovland. Damien, fantastic insight as always on Football Saturday this afternoon, and we'll look forward to chatting to you soon with the great Dan and Johnny.
Thanks, lads.
Mind yourself. Damien Delaney there, and Shane, thanks so much.
Cheers, John.
Enjoy Garth Brooks this evening.
I will indeed. Looking forward to
seeing the photos. Yeah, well, that's it. We all have them. We got to leave it there, folks. Don't forget, Off the Ball back tomorrow from 1 until 7 here on News Talk. Joe Malloy in the chair. No Premier League commentaries, as we know, with the death of Queen Elizabeth II and all the football off in the UK this weekend. But we do have a football hour with Brian Kerr, Nathan Murphy and Kenny Cunningham on the show. Also, the Sunday paper review with Conor McKeown and Cleona O'Connor in studio. And Brian O'Driscoll will discuss retirement from elite level sport. We'll also bring you the best of Golf Weekly. So plenty in tomorrow's show, even if there's not that many games. Of course, there's Club Championship action in the GA as well. Be sure to join Joe tomorrow for some great conversation. If you missed any of the Saturday panel, looking back on Leitrim's Connacht title win of 1994 with Martin McHugh, John O'Mahony and Liam Conlon, or any of OTB Football Saturday with Damien Delaney and Shane Keegan this afternoon, you can find the podcasts of our content on the OTB Sports app, or be sure to listen back wherever you get your pods. Thanks so much for listening to us this afternoon on your radio here across the nation on News Talk. We'll speak tomorrow at 1.